So now to change the black of my vector logo type, I go to that layer, the Putin type solution, right? And I simply double click on it to open up the layer styles. And I do a color overlay. And then I select that color, and instead of choosing it from here and finding a blue from here, I just click on the color I selected from the Ritz cracker. And it might be tough to see on the projector because it's a dark blue, but now that dark blue is the blue behind the yellow. That works quite well to kind of make you think of the Ritz. Now that solution I definitely want on the Ritz cracker here, but maybe I want to do something else. Maybe I want blue behind it, like this. Or maybe I want it to be an interesting shape, behind it. There's just so many different things. I tend to like to go pretty simple, so I'm just going to do a similar thing with the Ritz. Though I could add, shapes behind and different effects behind. But now for the Ritz part, how do I color it in with yellow? I already have my colors here, so I can steal from myself. I just make a new layer underneath it. And on the vector layer, I use the magic wand with contiguous turned on. I hold down Shift and I select within each letter form to get the shapes. I go to my layer behind it. I select the yellow. If you want to hold two colors, you can select a foreground and a background color. So right now the yellow is my foreground color. Then I go back to the type solution, I double click it, I go to color overlay, and I change it from the red to the blue. Now it's definitely bold, looks like box packaging. But it doesn't say so much the He-Man yet. The on the, maybe I'll do in the reverse and see how that looks. So I'll make a new layer behind that smart vector. Use the magic wand, select within the letter form shapes. Hold down Shift, do a multiple selection. Go to the layer behind it, fill it in with the blue. And then click on the vector, get the color overlay, and replace that with the yellow. Now that's a very simple layer style. It's just a color overlay, replacing the blacks of the type with a solid color, blue in these and yellow in these. But I can also do things like colored drop shadows, and I can make them glow, and I can do gradient effects. Now for the Putin there, I also wanted to bring in the rainbow. So I'll drag and drop that in. I'll size it and place it. And I want it to run behind. Line up with the top of the text. Like so. Okay, now because it's a separate EPS, I can move that behind the type solution. Now we're getting lots of layers here. And if you get confused, you can put them into groups, you can color them. But I put it behind everything. And maybe I'll try some different colors on this. So different color overlay. Not red, let's try light blue. Let's try the dark blue. I can steal it directly from what I've already used. That's somewhat effective. And I can play other layer style games, like I can give it a drop shadow. And I can make that drop shadow a color, like the yellow. And I can play with its spread and how it blends in with the background, and how it kind of softens out Putin's image there. Nice and subtle. Wonder if there's a rainbow pattern. I'm sure I can bring one in. Ah, but sure enough, I can do an actual rainbow behind as well. Lots of things I can do. I don't think I want that, but different ideas. Okay, now with my coloring solutions too, I can do layer styles to them. For instance, if I want Putin to be filled in with a different color, if I want to put a gradient overlay there and have it adjust it to different degrees, doing a gradient overlay on screen mode can help really make your flat color pop. Or I can do a pattern. I can use the rainbow one. Really zoom in, but that looks kind of silly. I don't usually do the patterns. But I could do a rainbow gradient. And play with its angle. And just put it in normal mode. That's the idea. And if I don't like how straight across it is, I can even make it radial. It's a little weird, but you have lots of options. Or angled. And if I think there's too many colors, I can always adjust the gradient by actually modifying it here. Like saying, I don't need the red, I already have the red, so let's push that to the edges. Let's broaden the scope of the blues a little. Get more of that pink at the top. So you have a lot of control with these layer styles. And then of course the opacity of each one. So you can layer these things on top of each other. And experiment with different ways of putting them together. Now, I'm going to go back to my inspiration though. I like this kind of very 80s look for the Masters of the Universe. So maybe I can make Putin more like that. And I think I need more effects for that. So I'm going to try things like on the type itself, an outer glow. And I can adjust how large that is, how much it softens, just like I did around Putin himself there. I can do an inner glow. Mess with those settings. I can do an inner shadow within the inner glow. And basically just really overdo the type. I can put an additional color stroke around it. That's any color I want in any blending mode. Steal the yellow. Make it a low opacity. And then I can just turn them off and on at will. Ooh. Make it look like metal all the way through. It changes blue to something a little bit more. Let's see. A little more saturated. Or maybe in the purples. There we go. Now remember, you can do that with the outlines, but you can also do it with the color. I think his gradient overlay is maybe a little much. So bring them together. You just have fun making finishing touches on it. All right. So now, what's some other stuff we can do? Well, there's texture. Sometimes when you have just clear flats, the way we use the halftones to break up the text there, the outlines, maybe I want to have some sort of texture to make it look more like the He-Man 80s design, but don't just take them for granted. So that's the bevel and emboss with texture. You can really modify that texture. The scale of it matters. How visible do you want it to be? The depth of it. How subtle or how strong is it? And I can do that also with the text, with the interior fill, which is this right now. which is a very strong gradient overlay. Maybe I want to take that